Planning front page, a lot of the papers today talking about how the government is setting out its planning revolution. The white paper is being published, Planning for the Future. And it's supposed to be the biggest reform for 70 years. The government's got a target of 300,000 new homes a year by the mid-2020s. In total, 1 million new homes over the 5-year parliament. But is this the way to achieve it? Well, let's talk to Housing Secretary Robert Jenrick about it. Good morning to you.
Hi, Julia. Good morning.
Good morning. So biggest reform for 70 years. Tories have been in power for quite a long time. What's taken so long, and what are these reforms going to do that are going to actually mean we do actually get the housing and the number of houses that we actually want?
Well, look, we do need to build more houses in the country. I think we can all agree on that. Houses of all types in 10 years in all parts of the country. Last year was a good year. We built 240,000 homes, more than any year in the last 30 years. But we've set an objective of building 300,000 homes, which we think is about the right number to make homes more affordable for young people, get more people onto the housing ladder. So the reforms that we're proposing today are a radical shift. They involve a new system which will be much faster and simpler. It will enable local communities through a new plan-making process to divide land into one of 3 categories: land where development is encouraged, land for renewal, where there'll be a faster route through the planning system, particularly for high-quality homes that meet local design codes, and then one part of every local area, understandably, where people want homes, no development to happen, for land to be protected, which will include the green belt, areas of outstanding natural beauty, and so on. We're going to be cutting red tape, but not standards. We actually think this can drive up standards by helping more small and medium-sized builders into the market, a more competitive housing market than we have today, and enabling local people to have meaningful engagement, particularly at the crucial moment, which is when the plans are being produced, not after the event, as many people try and influence the process today.
Well, listen, we're often told the planning is the problem, and that's what takes so long. And it can be now 7 years for someone to buy a property or buy some land and want to build on it before the first shovel goes in. You want to cut that to 2.5 years. But the trouble is, you are going to allow local people to have their say, quite rightly, over what areas are designated for growth, for renewal, for protection. But local councillors, they take a long time making the decisions, and they turn down planning decisions because of pressure from local people. Because, as you know, everyone wants there to be more homes built, apart from people in their own local area. It's not NIMBYism, not in my backyard. It's banana. Build absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone, which is the mantra. What does this do to actually change that? Because once you allow local people to have a say, as you should, then local people are going to stop a lot of those developments.
Well, it tries to strike a better balance in the system we have today. Actually, people are not really engaging in the current planning system. Only about 1% of people engage with local plan making because, as you say, it's so long-winded and convoluted. Only about 4% of people even engage in planning applications, when somebody's trying to build something in a field next to your house, which you may not approve of. So the current system isn't really engaging people effectively. We think the answer is that in some parts of every area to have a much faster route to development. But those areas, as you say, will be chosen by local people. We're also going to really try to drive up standards using design codes where a local community can decide what matters to them. So if it was my local area in Nottinghamshire, we care about our local vernacular, which is red brick and red tiles. You can set that in the law so that new homes have to be built to meet those standards. If we can make housing more attractive, and we can ensure that infrastructure actually flows with the housing, so you get the roads, the railways, the schools, the hospitals and the playgrounds being built with the housing, then we hope that we can assuage many people's concerns about new development and get those houses built. And another element of the plan today is that we'll be asking landowners and developers to pay more with a higher and simpler new charge, an infrastructure levy, which will make sure that social infrastructure actually comes first.
Let's talk about that, because again, a lot of the issue for people isn't that there are lots of new homes. And I mean, obviously, most of the people in this country don't live in London, but I look around London, there are cranes everywhere, loads and loads of apartment blocks being built. But these are apartments that are costing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds. They're not suitable for families. They're not affordable for most people. So people are concerned that developments are made building the sort of housing the average normal person can afford and the sort of family homes that they want. Now, you've got currently the community infrastructure levy. You say you're going to replace this with this new infrastructure levy. So it's a fixed percentage of the value of all new developments to pay for local infrastructure, the roads, the schools and all of that. Why do you think this will work better than the current system?
Well, the current system, there are two ways in which we as a country take a share of the uplift in value as a result of planning permissions being granted. One, as you say, is the Community Infrastructure Levy, and one is Section 106. They are very complicated. They lead to months, if not years, of wrangling between local councils and developers, and accusations that developers argue away the benefits to the local community on the grounds of viability, that the scheme just simply isn't viable if you build that playground or add those affordable homes. The system that we're going to create brings all of that to a close. There will be a simple, certain charge, a consolidated infrastructure levy. Everyone will know what it is. You'll know it when you buy the piece of land or you start building the homes. And the local community will know upfront approximately the amount of money they're going to be able to spend on.
So no one will be able to get out of it?
Absolutely. It will be a certain, predictable system. No wrangling. No developer or landowner will be able to wriggle out of their obligations to support the local community.
Okay. If I were a housing secretary, if I were a property developer, would I be able to wriggle out of it if I sat next to you at a Tory fundraising dinner?
No, absolutely not. I mean, that's the purpose. That is one of the benefits of this policy, that we will have a system that everybody understands up front. It's a charge nobody can avoid, and there'll be no debate between the local community, the council and the developer. Surely,
with all due respect, you can understand why people think it's a bit hypocritical that all the documentation, we've seen it all being published by your department, that you got involved in a planning decision involving the millionaire and former Daily Express owner, Richard Desmond, a £1 billion development, the Westbury development in East London, and you overruled your own planning experts and the local authority to approve that development. Specifically, the day before, we've seen the emails, you told your civil servants it must be done on that day, deliberately so they could avoid a £45 million levy to Tower Hamlets Council, one of the poorest councils in the country, to put that through. You've got to understand, there'll be people listening to this saying, you don't care about local infrastructure and local councils getting money. You yourself approved a planning development to avoid somebody having to pay millions to a poor local authority to pay for local infrastructure.
No, Julia, that's a complete misrepresentation.
Which bit was wrong?
Complete misrepresentation.
Which bit was wrong?
Well, many things were wrong. Firstly, it only came to the Secretary of State for a decision because the local council had sat on it for months and refused to take a decision themselves. They were actually in breach of the law by failing to determine...
Did you overrule your own planning inspectorate?
Well,
yes.
Secretaries of State, you make it sound as if that's something that's unusual. Secretaries of State come to different conclusions to planning inspectors all the time. All of my predecessors have done that, of different political persuasions. Ministers decide, officials advise. I supported the proposal because it enabled 1,500 homes to be built, hundreds of affordable homes, and new schools to be built.
And a lot more benefit would have gone to the local area. I feel very strongly about this because I did my local newspaper training in the East End of London under Tower Hamlets Council. I know just how poor that area is. It's one of the poorest places in the country. With all due respect, you pushed through the evidence published by your own department shows that you pushed through this decision. You wanted this decision; it was absolutely vital. You made it very clear to your staff this decision had to be taken on this day because and this was very specific. And then we know that the very next day, that Richard Desmond and the property development he was looking at would have had to spend £45 million and given it to the local council to spend on local infrastructure.
No, that's not correct, Julia. I didn't make the decision the day before, and it's a perfectly legitimate and long-standing...
You pushed for it to happen before that date.
It's a very long-standing principle in law that a Secretary of State should make a decision, but if possible, one way or another, before there's the material change in circumstances that might make the project unviable. If the project becomes unviable, then there are no homes, there are no affordable homes, and there are no schools and community benefits. And there's no money flowing to the local council whatsoever. The people who will lose out if a development like this doesn't go ahead are the people of Tower Hamlets. And if Tower Hamlets Council had wanted to make this decision, they could and should have done when the application sat with them for many months.
Do you think most of the people of Tower Hamlets can afford any of the flats that were in that development? Are you kidding me? Do you know what the average income is of people in Tower Hamlets Council?
Well, Julia, there were hundreds of affordable homes.
What counts as affordable? What was the cheapest home that was affordable?
Well, I don't know what the
I don't know.
would have been.
You took an interest in the development. This is the problem, isn't it? We have this ongoing issue. There is a lack of trust here.
Well, if I can answer the question, what the new system that I've designed is going to do will ensure that councils can't sit on applications, that decisions will have to be made swiftly, that local people will be actively involved in these decisions. They'll be able to set, for example, the design of buildings, so they can say if they want a particular a building to match with local history and vernacular. And there will be no debate about how much developers need to pay for local infrastructure. That will be set in law. Everybody will have to pay that. And these sorts of wranglings, which are not uncommon, they happen all over the country, unfortunately, and they take months or years to resolve and can become very contentious, will be a thing of the past. We're also going to ask developers and landowners to actually pay more. So there will be more social housing, affordable housing and community benefits as a result of this policy than we've seen in the past.
Can you just tell me what counts as affordable housing? Because we've had a former Chancellor in George Osborne who thought that 450 grand was affordable housing. And I think most of my listeners right now will be guffawing at that.
Well, affordable housing, we have a range of different affordable housing products. There are social rented homes that are available. There are affordable rent, which means 80% of market value. We also have shared ownership, and I've reformed that so that you'll now be able to get on the foot on the housing ladder through shared ownership with a very small percentage of a property, potentially as low as buying a 10% equity stake, which will enable people on quite modest incomes to do that. Yeah. And then this policy that we're announcing today will also enable us to move forward with our first homes proposal, which offers a 30% discount to the market price for key workers like teachers, nurses, police officers and army veterans, as well as local first-time buyers. All those types of affordable housing will now be available and funded through this new consolidated and much simpler levy.
OK, and just finally, you've got this target of 1 million new homes over a 5-year parliament. Do you think you're going to achieve that?
I hope so. We've met the million home target in the last 5 years. But look, if we don't take steps like this, we certainly won't. As a result of the pandemic, the number of starts of new properties has fallen significantly. So this year will be a challenging one for the industry. But that's why these reforms are very timely. Okay. If we want to build the homes, if we want to protect the millions of jobs that depend on housing construction, we've got to take bold steps.
OK, thank you very much. Housing Secretary Robert Jenrick.